Hello everybody, Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and don't know if you've heard about this yet today or if you've seen it on the news or anything, but Aston Villa absolutely monstered Manchester City. And I know people on YouTube like to exaggerate, but that is not an exaggeration. Statistically, stylistically, numerically, however you want to measure that game, Aston Villa basically bent Man City over and... So the question today is, how? How does anybody do that to a Pep Guardiola team? Well, like this. Alright, so just quickly before I start, really big special thank you to Classic Football Shirts who sent us this absolutely beautiful Boca Juniors Christmas jumper, but I don't think it's going to work with the blue screen. That might be a bit weird, so I'm leaving my coat on so the video doesn't look bad. It is, and I do need to start remembering to take my lanyard off, it is really, really nice. They've got a whole range, a big collection of them. We'll leave a link in the description below if you want one of your own. Anyway, Aston Villa, this Aston Villa, 11 players who are now immortalised in club folklore for probably delivering, maybe this is just my outside opinion, but their best win since returning to the Premier League. I think that's fair. But the main thing you need to know is this: Aston Villa sort of play a 4-4-2. That is nominally how they set up. It's normally how they defend, but what they do with it is just really clever and inventive, and it completely wrecked Man City. So the key thing here is the two wide players. Last night, that was John McGinn and Youri Tielemans. We will talk about them a little bit more. And what tends to happen is that the two central midfielders, they sit a little bit deeper, and these two players sit a little bit narrower. Now, as you may be starting to recognize from every single tactics video on every single channel for the last 12 months, this looks not unlike a box midfield, which some of the bigger teams use to get numerical superiority in the middle of the pitch. That's not what Villa have. It is a box. Yes, I can recognize a shape, but it's not a box midfield. While other teams will use it to sort of retain possession and hold onto the ball and do things nice and slowly, Aston Villa actually use it to break an opposition press and go really quickly from back to front. The goalkeeper, the defenders, and the two central midfielders, they will hold onto the ball, they will retain possession, they will knock it around, and when an opportunity comes out, when they spot the pass, one of the two wide midfielders will float into the middle to receive a killer ball. And when one of these wide players does receive that killer pass, then either the entire team can push up and they form this whole different attacking shape, or, as will occasionally happen, they'll catch them off guard and they've all of a sudden got space to do something really quickly. And this happened straight away in the game last night. Aston Villa's very first chance, Pau Torres, you can see here, he's in no rush whatsoever. He's being patient, he's happy to invite the press on, he's got loads of options around him, but then John McGinn comes off the wide area into the central space. Torres sees him, picks him out, and all of a sudden he's got all this room to play in. He gets turned away from John Stones, and without even looking, just knows where Leon Bailey is going to be, fires a ball into that space behind the Manchester City defence, and Villa get a really good chance of it. But how, you might be asking, did he know Leon Bailey, who was supposed to be a centre-forward in this system, how did he know he was going to be all the way over on the right-hand channel? Well, it's because you don't just have these two central midfielders floating inside so they can receive the ball in the middle, it's to pose the fullbacks and the defenders a real problem. Do you want to go with them and abandon your flank, or do you just want to let them receive that in space? And what Villa tend to do from there, when another team takes the bait, is either Diaby or Bailey or whoever's playing up front with Watkins, they'll spin off into that area. They'll receive the ball wide. And if we just rewind it a little bit, John McGinn knew Leon Bailey was going to be there because Youri Tielemans was here. So that's why it's a really, really effective system. And obviously Aston Villa are really good at implementing it, but specifically, why was this thing kryptonite to Manchester City? Well, the answer, rather unsurprisingly, is this box. Like, Aston Villa don't play the way Man City do. They don't have four players there for the reason Manchester City do, but by virtue of the way they do play, it meant that they ended up matched up man for man in that shape and in that area. And this is the truly astonishing thing about it. If we look at the four players Villa have occupying this space, and then we just sort of label up directly who they were playing against for Manchester City, man for man, and I'm being deadly serious here, Aston Villa have better players in that situation than Manchester City do. Now, just hang on just a quick second, let me explain. Maybe you really, really rate John Stones and Akanji and Rico Lewis and Alvarez. Maybe you think they're genuinely better players than Aston Villa have got. It's a fair argument. They just went and won the treble last season, but none of them, not one of them, is a midfielder. Now, obviously, Alvarez had a really good season being deployed from midfield. Rico Lewis is one of these fullbacks you can come across into midfield. John Stones practically played all of last season in midfield, but none of them have what those 4 Aston Villa players have, and that is hundreds of hours and hundreds of games under their belt in this part of the pitch. And what you get with that isn't just ability, it's instinct. Like, you know when to get on the ball and when to find some space. You know when to speed it up and when to slow it down, when to take a touch and when to release it early. Like, being a great footballer who is good on the ball will help, but it does not replicate years of experience. And that's why Villa just ran them absolutely ragged. Like, the second really good chance they get, it's exactly the same setup to the first. Torres is on the ball, he's being patient, he wants to try and play it through the middle like he did last time, but City, they're really panicked, they can't let that happen, so they flood the centre of the pitch. They outnumber them 6-4 in that area. But that isn't good instinctive decision making. It opened up a huge space out on the right hand side, and as soon as the ball goes to the fullback, Bailey, who is once again holding a wide position, recognises there's now loads of space in the middle because they've all swamped into the centre of the pitch. He begins a run straight into that space, and were his touch better, he'd have been clean through. And pretty much just every single time Villa got the ball in the midfield, they were able to do more or less what they wanted with it, because the players they were up against in that area weren't midfielders. They had no idea how to deal with it. Now, this is just a tiny little example, right? But a bounce pass is basically when you want to go from player A to player B, but that passing route is blocked, so player C recognises that the ball isn't for them, but can effectively form a little triangle around the problem, drops really deep, hits the ball first time, and you finally make that pass via him. You tend not to see it in this part of the pitch, because even if you are man for man in that situation, it's far more congested, there's more players around. If somebody does get pulled away chasing somebody down, someone is normally there to cover straight away. But again, all those words I just said tend to only really apply when the people doing this are experienced midfielders. Coming up to the end of the first half, Aston Villa want to play the ball from player A, who I think is Konsa, to player B, who is Youri Tielemans. Player C here, which is Camera, realises this ball is not for him. He's being tightly marked, but he has a quick look and he sees that the pass to Tielemans is blocked. So, as any experienced bounce passer would do, he attempts to drop short to give them a little indirect way of getting from A to B. Now, under normal circumstances, this shouldn't work because Alvarez here is easily capable of cutting out any B to C pass that happens. In fact, so obvious is it what's coming here that Manuel Akanji even shouts at him, points at Youri Tielemans, and tells him that's where the ball is going. Akanji, you see, is an experienced bounce passer himself. He's seen this before. But Alvarez, being a centre-forward boy in a midfield man's body, is thinking only about turning that ball over and getting a dangerous chance, so just ignores the instructions and goes straight for Camera. Lo and behold, the bounce pass takes him straight out of the equation, forcing the City fullback here to push up onto Tielemans to stop him running down the line. Again though, not a problem here because City are 4-for-4. There's not really any way out. He's going to have to go all the way back to his goalkeeper. Or rather, he would have to do that, yes, with this an experienced central midfielder here and not a floppy-haired spaniel with the scent of a sausage in its nose. He chases the ball down onto Tielemans, leaving this glaring amount of space here, and in the process turning player C, who was only there to provide the bounce pass, into just a midfielder with the ball at his feet and space in front of him. And also goes without saying, because City's backline is pressed so far up while all this has been going on, Watkins is clean through, and were he not to trot on the ball, would almost certainly just get in and score. So that is legitimately a goal Aston Villa should have had, purely because Pep Guardiola put a forward in midfield and Villa did a little triangle around him. But I mean, as for the actual goal, it's pretty much just the greatest hits of all the stuff we've already looked at. One of Villa's centre-backs is just being patient on the ball, inviting the press, waiting for one of his wide players to move into the centre so he can play the ball through, which inevitably, eventually he does, and I still don't know if this is like a really clever touch or if it just kind of bounces off him, but either way, it does get there, and he gets that straight through to Bailey, who is now standing on the right-hand side, taking up the space he vacated. But I'll tell you why, of all the chances Villa had, I'm glad this is the one they scored, because it's not purely about the system. They have actually got Bailey quite well marked on this side for once, but what he does is he skins him. He turns Guardiola with his first touch. It's just a good old-fashioned doing, and once again he charges from the right-hand space into a central area. Villa have them 3v2 as they get into the final third, and such is just the frantic disorganisation. What's Ruben Diaz doing here? Who is he pointing at and why? There is no Villa player coming down the left-hand side. Who is he telling to watch that space in behind? Villa had, by this point in the game, put the willies up Man City's defenders so much, they're screaming for people to go and mark players that aren't even there. But anyway, here we are, the actual moment of the shot, and just look at the amount of space he has with which to pull the trigger. City have been pulled this way and that. They don't know who's going with the runner, who's going with the man, who's going with the space. Villa's movement has just confused them so much. City have 3 centre-backs in close attendance, and none of them can put an effective block in against that shot. No, in fact, all they can do is just dangle a leg out of it, so by the time the ball travels through and hits that, it just simply loops up over the goalkeeper and into the back of the net. And yeah, of course, they were lucky with the deflection, but Villa could have got their goal any number of ways. Like this John McGinn one is my personal favourite. You can see here so much are City struggling to control this game. They've even dropped Bernardo Silva from the right wing into sort of a nominal number 6 role just to help them get on the ball. This is something else we talked about in the Villa tactics video. Like, they don't go this narrow when they press. They try and stay as a proper 4-4-2. And Douglas Luiz, his job is to sort of press into that middle area to stop teams playing out. They kind of go to a bit of a diamond. And that's exactly what happens here. Like, as soon as the ball goes into Silva, he is on him like on Velcro, and the pressure forces him to lose the ball. And it would have been nice if McGinn had got that goal, by the way, because I thought he was the best player on this pitch by a fucking mile. Like, every single stat I've seen in the last couple of hours, like, he had the most dribbles, he won the most duels and all this. There isn't a metric that sort of measures how good you are at sticking your big arse out to shield the ball, but if there was, he'd have topped that as well. And just while we're on the stats, some of the numbers coming out of this game are absolutely incredible, given it was only 1-0. That is the most amount of chances a Pep Guardiola team has ever faced, ever, like 22 across the course of the game or something. It's the most any team has won the ball back from them in the final third. That's just mind-blowing. City's entire XG from that game, which I think is like 0.8 or something, comes from a double chance they had in the 11th minute. After that chance, their XG for the rest of the game is 0.00. They didn't have one go a goal. And one final thing I want to illustrate here, okay? This is Aston Villa's average pass map, their average positions. That looks to me like nothing particularly exciting or spectacular. You can see here they were spread all over the pitch. They were getting in quite advanced areas. And as we've discussed, both their wide players play quite narrow and their other striker plays quite wide. Nothing there you didn't know. But I show you it to highlight what a normal pass map should probably look like, okay? So you're looking at it, retain that information. This is City's. You could legitimately throw an admittedly quite large blanket over their entire team just sat in the middle of the pitch. They could barely get out of their own half. Now, just I really want to hammer this point home, because I do these videos a lot and I like to use these pass maps quite a lot. You do quite often see teams that can't get past the halfway line, but when that happens, their defenders are on the edge of their own box. City's are only 10 yards behind them. And what that shows you, what that really neatly illustrates, is that last night, Manchester City were a team that were building out from the back, that liked to have controlled possession, that would get the ball and try and move it through the middle of the pitch, but simply couldn't. Like, that legitimately looks like a normal pass map that has gone headfirst into a brick wall and is now squashed. That is what Aston Villa did to them. And I could go on and on and on and on. Like, Watkins wasn't really in the chances, but his movement was brilliant. I think Martinez might probably be the best goalkeeper in the world. I definitely think Douglas Luiz is the best number 6 in the Premier League right now. Just this individual performances all over the pitch were great, but the system, how it worked, how it absolutely beasted Man City, I could not believe what I was watching. Now, I will say, if you are a Man City fan, you've got all the way to this point in the video. This is not me saying you're suddenly crap and you're not going to win anything. You've got loads of key injuries. I thought the selection was bad. You look tired. There's loads of reasons why your performance sucked. And I think when you get some players back, you're not going to ever suck that much again. But just this video, I just want to praise Villa, because it's so easy when a really big team gets beat by literally anybody else to just look at the problems they had rather than giving the due credit to a team that did so much right. So Villa, that's your win. That's not Man City's loss. Anyway, that is it from me, though. If you have enjoyed this video, and people seem to, bizarrely, then please do consider subscribing to us here at FourFourTwo on YouTube. They're every single day, this stuff, and my mom says they're good. Thanks once again to the folks at Classic Football Shirts. I'll just take the cut off at this point. If the blue screen goes mad, then who really cares? You can get your own beautiful football Christmas jumper from the link in the description. Honestly, the range is absolutely mind-blowing. You can get me on whatever your favourite social network is. That's not really any of my business. At Adam Cleary, Clery, 442 socials in the corner of the video. That's incredibly uncomfortable. But until next time, I've been Adam Cleary. This has been 442. Well done, Villa. That was fun. And I'll see you soon. Bye. 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 Bye.